Hello, everybody. Hello, how are we? How are we all doing? The birthday weekend has begun. I have got a brand new, just so you know, because last week we came under a little bit of criticism for wearing. We came under a little bit of criticism for obviously wearing a Mercedes top whilst making a video. I will clarify now that was a McLaren top, but I thought this week I'll just go completely all the other way. We've got the AlphaTauri cap on, we've got the Pierre Gasly underneath. We're ready and raring to go. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? And Nev is in there. SHT is in there. Tom, Vic, Emma, Vic again. Liam, hello. How are we all? Are we ready for the first ever qualifying session in Qatar? Obviously, lots of talk about Qatar as a venue just because of the political situation around it, but also because it is brand new to the Formula One calendar. The last driver that is on the Formula One grid currently that drove round here was Sergio Perez in 2009. So he is the only driver on the field that has ever driven this track before. Obviously, they've had a few practice sessions to try and get themselves ready and raring to go. But it's 2021. It's Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Pretty much anything could happen. Like, anything and everything has happened this season. We've had Alpine win a race, we've had McLaren win a race, we've had continual podiums from Aston Martin, and Ferrari have got some podiums as well. Like, anyone and everyone's been. A Williams got second place in Spa, let's not forget. Anything could happen. We've got 3 races left to go, and obviously we had a little chat about those various things last night. If you haven't seen the pre-race preamble, we had a little bit of chat about Qatar. Obviously talked about the Toto and Christian Horner press conference as well. Hello, Sean, mate. Hello from Ireland. Still in Ireland. Love that. And Liam as well. Mazepin has driven the track. Yeah, there's a few drivers that have driven the track but not raced on the track, I think was the thing. I was reading about it yesterday, and it was like Sergio Perez is the last Formula One driver to have fully raced around this track in like full conditions. I think it was in like Formula Asia, I want to say. Formula 2, Formula Asia, Formula something. Definitely a formula of some kind. And of course, we talked about Giovinazzi yesterday as well, and I might talk a little bit more about Giovinazzi and Alfa Romeo today. I thought I'd just put the Drivers' Championship up there for you. It is getting ever so close to the end of the season. We're 3 races away, and there's still so much to fight for. It feels like over the last few seasons in particular, we've had quite a few seasons where there's not really been much to fight for at this point in the year. There's so much left to fight for at this point in the year this time around, and obviously the last era of this engine. We're moving over to the brand new era in 2022. So what a way to sort of culminate and crescendo this era of Formula One with one of the best seasons we've possibly had. Obviously, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton right at the top there, and they will just be going at each other, I think, until the end. Toto Wolff and Christian Horner talked about the fact that they're in this title battle. There hasn't been a title battle like this in quite a while, but my goodness me, it's just wonderful to have in the sport right now. Valtteri Bottas currently sitting in 3rd place. You think it would be pretty tricky for Sergio Perez to catch him at this point, but you never know. There's still a little bit of a battle going on there for 3rd place. And then 5th through to 8th, or really 7th. I don't know if we can count Daniel Ricciardo in there. Daniel Ricciardo probably need another race win. And, getting one was hard enough this season. Getting another might just be a little bit too much. But Lando Norris currently 3 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. And going into the summer break, if you'd have said that, the Ferraris were going to be anywhere close to Lando Norris, I just wouldn't have believed you. But now it is getting closer still between them. Charles Leclerc just 3 points off that 5th place, which is a bit disappointing for Lando Norris. Obviously, it hasn't been entirely his fault. The car just hasn't been as good in the second half of the season as it was in the first. The McLaren really hasn't taken those steps forward like some of the other teams have. Specifically, Ferrari have taken so many steps forward. And just the consistency and the quality has shone through. Like, Charles Leclerc has only got 1 podium position this season to Lando Norris's 4 podium finishes. But it's just that consistency. He's always in and around that top 5, isn't he? And even more so in the last few races, just has consistently been in that fourth place, fifth place, fourth place, fifth place every single time. And that is what is dragging Ferrari up the table right now and heading towards, getting third in the constructors and also having the fifth and sixth best drivers on the grid. Obviously, Carlos Sainz a little bit further behind, but Lando Norris only picked up 1 point last time around in Brazil. Needs a big boost of points this weekend, in my opinion, if he's going to hold on to that fifth place. And then Daniel Ricciardo actually being caught up by Pierre Gasly, the man, the myth, the legend, the person I've got my eyes on this afternoon. He has been so good in qualifying during this triple header. Mexico and Brazil, wonderful performances from him. And he just shows his quality every single time in qualifying. I think he's one of the best drivers when it just comes to one lap in that car. Absolutely go for it. He just shows every single time that he's got the pace, he's got the quality, and he does everything just about right. Loving that we're talking about Yuki Tsunoda in the chat. Let's get to the chat then and see what people are saying. Leclerc really close to Norris. Yeah, it's going to be very, very close indeed. Got to see Alonso go fastest. He was pretty good. He's pretty good. Hello, Connor, mate. How are we doing? I think Alpine and AlphaTauri are going to be that midfield battle. Almost definitely. Let me pop up the constructors for you. 112 points each. Could it be any closer? Literally, no. They're on the same amount of points with 3 races to go. Let's not forget, Ocon has a win this season, and AlphaTauri effectively... Really sorry, Yuki Tsunoda. I know your points count for a lot at this point, but are basically being carried by one driver. It's effectively Pierre Gasly versus Alpine, and they are right in and amongst each other. I don't want to talk down Yuki Tsunoda. Obviously, he's had a very tough year, but just how on earth are AlphaTauri still in this battle with Alpine when Alpine, both drivers really, been very consistent, especially the second half of the season. No, Ocon had a bit of a downturn sort of between Monaco and Silverstone. You could argue that Ocon kind of went off the boil a bit. Won a race in Hungary, came into the second half of the season. Alonso's been excellent. Ocon's been very, very good as well behind him. And yet, Pierre Gasly and AlphaTauri are holding on. But we're talking about Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda top 7 in quali, says Liam. Yuki fan club. I like it. We're getting the AlphaTauri vibes going. I feel like the hat is maybe pushing people in a certain direction. Just like a bit of, what's it called? Like cerebral guiding from the hat here. But maybe tomorrow I'll wear some McLaren merch. To be fair, I feel like there's probably some McLaren merch on the way tomorrow. The birthday is tomorrow. This was an early birthday gift that we've got going our way. Tsunoda fan since F3. It's been hard this year. I think Tsunoda has just had a very up and down year. It feels like every time he does something really good, it gets kind of tracked back by something going the opposite direction. So lots of the time he'll do really well, won't he? He'll like qualify really high, or he'll help Pierre Gasly in a race, or he'll defend really well from Lewis Hamilton. I remember that as well. And even in Mexico, he was in Q3, he was helping Pierre out, giving him a bit of a tow, and then got in the way of the Red Bulls, got told off by Christian Horner, got told off by Marco, and then the next time out in Brazil just didn't look quite comfortable in that car again. I think every time he slowly gets towards where he's maybe a little bit comfortable in this AlphaTauri, just sort of gets knocked down a peg. And I think he sort of needs this year to be ended with. He knows he's in the car next season. He's got the winter break to obviously, settle back into the team, get used to being part of that AlphaTauri setup even more so. Get used to the brand new car as well. So that's going to sort of level the playing field for a lot of these guys that are rookies this season or are coming into Formula One next year. That sort of leveling of the playing field because of so much change coming in. It's going to be very, very interesting indeed. Breaking news, Pierre Gasly is going to miss Qatar GP. Severe back pain by carrying the entire... Jesus, Manev, if we're gonna have jokes like that, can we have like a censor warning at the beginning? I was genuinely really worried. I was like, oh no, maybe the hat has jinxed him. Don't think Perez will get near Bottas. No, it's going to be very, very tough to get near Bottas, to be fair. But he has done pretty well. It would have been 4 podiums in a row if he'd have got one last time. It's obviously, 3 podiums in a row before that. So Sergio Perez is showing a little bit more quality. over the last few races and has started to, be more of a sort of earlier in the season, particularly, we were talking about how it always seems like it is Hamilton and Verstappen and Bottas together, those three sort of battling, and then Sergio Perez was maybe down in like fifth, sixth, seventh. It does seem like Sergio Perez has kind of come into the party now. He often qualifies sort of third or fourth and is now battling in and amongst that sort of top three, top four, rather than battling for like sixth, seventh. It feels like he's taking that bit of a step forward. Yuki's car looks good this weekend. I really hope so. I'm hoping the AlphaTauris can do good because, as you can see, this midfield battle is just mental. Like right in the midfield as well, fifth and sixth place, and it'll mean quite a lot to these teams to get that extra little bit of cash that they get, and also just the extra little bit of media attention. And Alpine, well, Renault and Alpine obviously came back into the sport and want to make strides forward, want to, try and make their way back up to one of those top teams. We have to remember that Fernando Alonso won his world championships in a Renault car. That is where they, used to be. That's where they aspire to be again, I guess. Similar to sort of McLaren and Ferrari at this point. It feels like it's been a very, very long time since they've had the best car on the grid, but they're trying to, make those steps forward. It's been Red Bull and Mercedes for the past, 10 to 12 years, really. And we're starting to, make that step forward where Ferrari might be in the battle for the title next year. McLaren, if they take step forwards, could be in the battle for the title next year. And Alpine will be that team that wants to put their hat into the ring too. They'll be very interested in trying to take that step forward and again, win a title, possibly with Fernando Alonso at the helm again. That would be poetic, really, wouldn't it? That he obviously left the team, had all of that controversy with the Renault title to begin with anyway, and just it would be wonderful if he could, with Alpine, this new sort of Renault outfit that has come back into Formula One, obviously with sort of Lotus, and then Renault with Kimi Raikkonen and Grosjean, and then has taken those steps forward, brought in Ocon, brought in sort of Hulkenberg along the way as well, wasn't there? Daniel Ricciardo along the way, sort of brought in these bigger and bigger drivers as they've slowly progressed up the grid, and now this 2022 is maybe an opportunity for them to take that final step forward and start battling for wins and so on. But I'd love to see what Alpine can do. James, you prefer Sauber Sergio Perez, Force India Sergio Perez, or Red Bull Sergio Perez? I'd probably have to say Force India. He was there for so long that, when I do think of Sergio Perez, like Force India are probably the first team that popped to mind, to be honest with you. He just was there for so long and became sort of synonymous with that team. Obviously, they decided to get rid of him last season for Sebastian Vettel, to be fair. That's a tough choice. Sergio Perez versus Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel, a 4 times world champion, obviously brings in all the PR and the money from that end. But Sergio Perez also brings in a lot of money from America and from Mexico and all those places as well. So unlucky for Sergio Perez to lose his seat, in my opinion. And realistically, could they have got rid of Lance Stroll? Like, if you'd have had Sebastian Vettel and Sergio Perez in the Aston Martin this year, would you be doing better than the current team that is Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll? Probably. But obviously, we know that next year he's going to be in Red Bull again anyway. So it's been quite a nice step forward for Sergio Perez. He's obviously picked up a lot more podiums in a Red Bull than he would have been able to in an Aston Martin. So he's probably fairly happy that he was let go by the Aston Martin / Racing Point / Force India conglomerate. And was actually given an opportunity to take a step forward, which seems a little bit strange that he wasn't good enough or wasn't wanted by that midfield outfit in Aston Martin, but then was picked up by probably the best or second best team on the grid this season. If you're Sergio Perez, you take that as a win every single day and you walk that straight to the bank, I think. Am I correct? Red Bull are now protesting Mercedes' rear wing. I think they said if the rear wing is like what they expect, they're going to protest it. So I haven't actually seen any news on it. I assume, they will, won't they? As long as Mercedes haven't changed anything, then they will definitely be protesting that rear wing. Whoever has the best power unit will dominate the 2025 regs due to the engine freeze. That is true. We've got the engine freeze coming up, but there's still quite a few years left to go yet. We've got quite a few years to get towards 2025. Who do I think will win the Constructors title? David. I've got no idea. It flip flops every single time, doesn't it? Like realistically, you should. I think Max Verstappen has led more laps than everybody else and has had more pole positions. So you'd say that the Red Bull car has probably been the better car. But obviously, with Sergio Perez, his first sort of few races in that car, or even the first half of the season, was quite tricky for him, and was a little bit of a learning curve. So that's kind of leveled them out with Mercedes, hasn't it? It's going to be very, very close indeed, both in the Constructors and in the Drivers' Championship. I think this weekend will give us either lots of information, like let's say, both Mercedes drivers don't finish and Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen finish 1-2, then I think, it will swing towards Red Bull quite heavily. But if both teams finish, both teams are in and around sort of first to fourth in any kind of order, it still is all to play for, really. What do I think of the signing of Zhao? Not great. I mean, it is. He's a good driver. Don't get me wrong. He's been in F2 for what, 3 years now. He's obviously second in F2 at this moment in time. But I think there was better. I think there's better drivers than Zhao that Alfa Romeo could have come for. But obviously, he does bring with him a £30 million pay packet, which is a massive, massive amount of money for anybody on the grid, let alone a team like Alfa Romeo that are, dwindling at the moment towards the bottom end of the table. They've, made all change. Kimi Räikkönen's retiring, so they've taken that opportunity to just have a big sort out of the whole team. They're bringing in another Finn in Valtteri Bottas. I think they were sort of pushed to reveal that by Mercedes. I think we probably could have been waiting until about now to know whether or not Valtteri Bottas was going to be in Formula One next season, but I think Mercedes kind of pushed them towards just announcing it. And then, yeah, Zhao was the final piece of the puzzle to slot in. I've just popped it up on this side for you. So George Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Ricciardo, Alonso, Ocon, Gasly, Tsunoda stay together, Vettel, Stroll, Latifi, Albon, obviously new into Formula One as well, Bottas and Zhao, and then our two rookies at Haas are continuing on for another season, Schumacher and Mazepin rounding out our 20. And yeah, that is the one, Manev. Piastri is the one. But yeah, he could get Alonso's seat. Obviously, Zhao, because he's moved to Alfa Romeo, has cut ties with Alpine. So I know that he was obviously part of the Alpine Junior program and obviously drove the Alpine car earlier on in the season as well in some free practices. But he has now cut those ties with Alpine. So we won't see Zhao in an Alpine in the future, I don't imagine. But we might see him, make steps forward in Alfa Romeo, and that does leave the door open for those other Alpine juniors like Oscar Piastri, who for me was sort of, I don't know, I think Zhao was fairly far down on my list to begin with. Just if you were looking at like pure talent or pure driving ability, I don't think Zhao was very high on my list at all. Obviously, there was people talking about the likes of Eilert, Piastri, or the other end of the spectrum. You could go for someone like Hulkenberg, or even like, I don't know, Grosjean, I guess, or Magnussen, if you wanted to go all the way down that route of picking someone up who had a bit more experience in Formula One and could drive the team in a slightly different way. I think they've gone the right route in that they've gone for youth. For me, Piastri, Eilert seem like much better pickups. I know that F2 is, not everything, and not everybody who makes the step up from F2 is wonderful in Formula One, but even so, I think Zhao, it's mainly a monetary thing that has made that decision happen for Alfa Romeo. Obviously, the deal fell through with that team has just completely gone out of my mind. The American team that's in IndyCar that wanted to buy Alfa Romeo, it's gone out of my head. But obviously that deal fell through, and if that deal would have gone through, I think maybe we wouldn't be looking at Zhao because they'd probably want to bring in a driver that they can sort of mold as their own rather than having to go for the monetary side of things. Um, so yeah, interesting. Do you think Kvyat still has a chance to race in Formula One in the future? He's Alpine's reserve driver. I think it might just be a little bit too late for him, right? It's one of those things like age really does get to you if you're a sports person. Even like 2 or 3 years later, and suddenly you're just too old. You're seen as too old. Like if you're in your mid 20s, you're like prime, right? You're sort of peaking your powers. You're seen as the driver to maybe go and get Andretti. Yes, it was Andretti. Thank you. Yeah, it was. You're sort of seen as the peak of your powers as when you're especially in your early 20s, mid 20s, and then as soon as you get towards sort of 30. You start to be seen as this sort of veteran driver, this driver who's sort of winding down towards the end of their career. And I think that happens in all sports. We see that with footballers, right? Talking about footballers who are 28, 29, and then, as soon as a footballer becomes 30, they're just, not worth looking at anymore, basically. They're just too old for a lot of teams to be picking up and sort of looking to the future with. And a similar sort of thing happens for F1. You sort of get your couple of years. If you're not good enough in those couple of years, or even if you're only average in those couple of years, it can be very, very tricky for you to continue on. Like, if we look at the grid now compared to 10 years ago, there's obviously those drivers still in there, your Hamiltons, your Vettels, but there's a lot of change in there also. And those changes happen every single season. Like, what have we got? We've got 4 changes to the grid this year. That's 20% of the grid. That's a fifth of the drivers have been shuffled around in some way just this season. And like that is a huge change every single year that happens in Formula One. So unless you're absolutely at the peak of your powers and you're wanted and seen as like a necessity by the teams, it's very tricky to come through. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rules, James. Yeah, I know. Ronaldo is obviously just a phenom. He's not scoring as many goals, but he's also like not in a team that is anywhere near as potent as the Real Madrid and Juventus sides that he's been in beforehand, is he? So it's one of those things. Obviously, there's always exceptions to the rule. Like Fernando Alonso looks wonderful this season. He's been great in my opinion. I think he's shown really, really good driving ability and has shown great, great tenacity over the course of the year as well in that Alpine. But he's kind of an exception to the rule. Most drivers can't come back into Formula One in their sort of later 30s and still do it at the highest possible level. Maybe just shows how good Alonso really is. He is a 2-time world champion for a reason. Similar with Kimi Raikkonen, he is a world champion. It's slightly different bringing in a former world champion compared to a Danny Kvyat who never really took that step up into a big team and sort of grasped it with both hands. It was always like, oh, okay, he's moved up into Red Bull, but he's kind of the second driver. Or, yeah, he's in AlphaTauri now, and we'll sort of see in a season's time AlphaTauri if he'll be good enough. I think that's why George Russell has made the step to Mercedes for me, because if he'd have left it another year, you don't know if it's just going to be a year too long. And then suddenly, he's not the young driver on the grid anymore. He's an experienced driver with 4 years behind him, but he still hasn't been good enough to move up to the Mercedes team, or the Mercedes team haven't deemed him as good enough to move up into the full team. And then your questions start to be changed in a slightly different way. Oh my goodness me, Blender with the craziness. Verstappen move off. We could talk about the Verstappen move off track, to be fair, but I think it's done and dusted now. The FIA have decided not to look into it. So, as much as I think that is maybe a problem, I think it is definitely something that they should have looked into, in my opinion. But at the same time, they've decided not to look into it, and I don't want that to be. I don't want to come back and look at this season and dwell on those kind of things. I think we should take this season as the phenomenal season it has been and not worry really too much about obviously the fact that there are going to be mistakes and battles and things that go wrong over the course of the season as well. I will just get the timer ready because we're actually headed towards qualifying already, believe it or not. We've got a couple of minutes till qualifying is on. Maybe it's already on for you by the time you're seeing this. There is a slight delay on YouTube for you guys that are new. So if you want to level up your sort of stream with my stream, I'll put a timer up when quali starts for me. But I'm about 3 minutes away from qualifying starting when you see this for round 20 in Qatar. And again, we just have no idea what's going to happen, really. We've seen the 3 practice sessions, but we know that practice sessions can't always give us quite that amount of information that we need. You know, we've constantly had, you know, Red Bull being fastest in free practice and then Mercedes come out of nowhere and qualify first, or vice versa, where we've had Mercedes been outstanding in practices and then when it comes to qualifying, these top level drivers just find that extra little bit. I think the pressure of qualifying does eke out the best in those drivers towards the top. So I don't know if free practice is always the best look at it. Obviously, talking about tyre compounds, of course, the hardest, the C3 through to C1 this weekend. And we'll have to wait and see. I think tyre deg is going to be quite high. Obviously not in qualifying. Doesn't really matter, does it? Because everybody is going to qualify on fairly similar sorts of tyres. You'd imagine everyone's going to go softish for the first qualifying session. But it is still really, really hot. And under the lights as well. It's towards the evening there in Qatar. So I do like a good street race under the lights. What was it? Singapore is the one I'm thinking of. Singapore is one of my favourite tracks. Just under the lights makes Formula One look so much better, in my opinion. Like, if we could have every race in the evening or at night, that'd be wonderful. But I do like the fact that we have these Asian races at night because obviously it's just boiling hot during the day. But also the lights do make it look spectacular. Have I seen the landscape for the Saudi Arabian GP? I haven't really looked towards the next two. Obviously, we've got a week gap between them, but I haven't really looked too much at the next couple of weeks. I will just pop up the track for you, actually, because I assume like lots of people won't have seen this track before. It is brand new to Formula One. Lots of MotoGP has taken place here, but no Formula One before. And as I was saying, Sergio Perez, the last driver to sort of drive around here in a competitive nature. And if we think about how long Sergio Perez has been in Formula One, that's quite a long time ago. That is a very, very long time ago indeed, if Sergio Perez was the last man to drive around here. Thank you so much for the support on the streams in the last couple of weeks as well. If we could hit the like button. I know it's very rude to like ask and force people to do things. I'm not forcing you to do it. I'm just suggesting in a lovely manner that you pop onto the like button. It does help me out massively with these live streams and getting a little bit of traction. Oh, and finally, it is my birthday tomorrow. Hence why I'm wearing a brand new Alpha Tauri cap, Pierre Gasly inspired. But it is my birthday tomorrow. If you do want some Formula One merch of your own, if you're looking at this cap, you're like, that is a lovely little cap you've got on there. I'd like one of those. There is a giveaway going on the community page. If you're subscribed to the channel, you're entered automatically. So it's well worth subscribing for that. And then there's also 4 different ways you can enter on top of subscribing. So if you want to increase your chances of winning, you can do so by following the link on the community page or on my Twitter as well. But the giveaway ends tomorrow at midday. I'm going to be picking out a winner tomorrow on stream, hopefully, if I can get it to work properly, or I'll pick it before the stream and I'll announce it on stream tomorrow. So get involved there, win yourself £100 worth of merch. But we need to get back to qualifying. I'll pop the Drivers' Championship up just whilst we get going in Q1. And then we will delve into who is going to be out. For those of you guys that hasn't watched before, obviously all 20 cars go out in this qualifying session and will drive around the track. And then it is whoever is the slowest 5. So whoever comes 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th will be knocked out and will not make it through to the next qualifying session. So there's sort of 3 rounds of qualifying. We will start off in Q1. And let me just pop up the timer for you. There we go. So here we go then. We are underway. Both Hasses are out on track, Mick Schumacher and Mazepin. Very much looking forward to those two coming into collision with one another. I thought it was going to happen over the course of the season at some time. It hasn't happened yet, but I still have got 3 races left to go to obviously have that Gunther Steiner interview that we're all looking forward to, where he just absolutely cuts into both of these drivers for driving into one another. Here we go then. Latifi has also come out, and I think that's Kimi Räikkönen behind too. So lots and lots going on. And they're just showing the stats there between Hamilton and Verstappen. It's crazy. Verstappen's got 9 wins this season. Hamilton 6 in comparison, but it's still very, very close indeed. Also, sprint races. Verstappen 7 points from sprint races. Hamilton only 2. The sprint race weekends really haven't gone Hamilton's way the majority of the time, have they? Here we go then. We have got 15. Ooh, wait, what? What's happened here? Why is my timer like a minute later than it should be? And my house is on fire now, so that's always good. Why is my timer wrong? Hang on, I'll reset it. My timer's wrong. But there we go. Should I check if my house is actually on fire? Nah, it'd be alright, wouldn't it? I trust. Sorry, I got the timer completely wrong. I think I added a minute or something along the way, and I only just realised. There we go. We're starting to get drivers out on the track there. No Mercedes, no Red Bulls as of yet then. And we know that Alpines love to leave it late too. We have got Pierre Gasly out on the track though. And he is probably one of the men to watch this time around. Has been very quick in qualifying over the last couple of weeks or so. And is on the medium tyres. Thank you for letting me know. Maybe he's very confident in his ability to get through. You know, we're assuming that the something's gone wrong with that Haas, because Nikita Mazepin's front wing is dragging along the surface. And I do like that this track is very harsh on track limits. Like, there is curbs and bumps all over the place here. And I think it was one of the was it Max Verstappen's Red Bull that took some damage in free practice because he just took a curb a little bit too much. And I really like that. The fact that, you know, the track almost punishes you massively for making a mistake. We're on board with Pierre Gasly, the man that we are supporting today. Or I support him every week, but I feel like I have to extra support him considering I'm wearing something with his name on it. But he has gone fastest in the middle sector. Vettel is currently the fastest driver on the track, with Stroll just behind Kimi Räikkönen, but Carlos Sainz comes across the line and goes into first place as well. So we're setting lap record after lap record, because it is a 1 minute 20-ish, 20-25-ish lap. Let's see. Pierre Gasly does a 1:23.4. Slots himself 4th fastest at the moment. Is on the medium compound tyre, though, as we've pointed out in the chat. So maybe he's just got an idea that we don't really know about yet. From Singapore, watch the race live. Ooh. Yeah, the cars under the lights look so good. Just so good. And Daniel Ricciardo's helmet as well. Is he out on track? He's out on track now, Daniel Ricciardo. If you get the opportunity to look at his helmet, it is just going to look stunning under these lights. It's going to be glistening and just showing everything that we can. So we've got Carlos Sainz currently 1 minute 23.3, and Charles Leclerc just 200ths of a second behind him. But then Vettel not too far off either, only 400th behind off in 3rd. So Gasly in 4th, actually quite a bit off considering the 3 in front of him are so closely packed together. But we are now seeing Lewis Hamilton going around. Purple in the first sector is Lewis Hamilton by 4/10ths as well. So this looks like the Mercedes is suddenly going to come to life in Q1. and maybe show the Ferraris just how fast they can be. Max Verstappen coming around doesn't quite go as fast as Lewis Hamilton in the first sector. And then Valtteri Bottas, again, also not quite as fast as Lewis Hamilton. So Lewis Hamilton now making up 0.8 of a second on Sergio Perez, who has just gone fastest by 1/10 of a second. But as I said, we're not too worried about these guys at the front yet. It's more about the guys at the back. But currently, we've only got 10 drivers who have set a lap time. And we're waiting for quite a few. Lando Norris goes fastest by 0.4 ahead of Sergio Perez. Really well done from Lando Norris. But that then is shuffled to second by 0.8 of a second by Lewis Hamilton. A 1:22 dead. And Verstappen with a 1:22.2. Valtteri Bottas goes fourth fastest with a 1:22.9. So slower than the McLaren of Lando Norris. And Daniel Ricciardo in the other McLaren can only go 9th fastest. So the cars now coming to fruition, it looks like, especially those cars at the front of the grid. Lewis Hamilton looking very quick indeed. Just looking at a rear view of the Red Bull. Loads of sparks going around here. Obviously, incredibly high speed corners, but my goodness me. They are just going flat out around these high-speed corners. That is insane from these Formula One cars. And now we're looking at Yuki Tsunoda, yet to have set a time on the soft compound tyre. And again, the sparks fly for the Japanese driver. What can he do in his first qualifying lap around this brand new Formula One circuit? Currently, Mazepin, Tsunoda, Mick Schumacher, Alonso and Ocon are 5 that are out. But of course, Alonso and Ocon leaving it till last. Alpine just love leaving it until the last lap, don't they? They like being different to everybody else. As Pierre Gasly does another lap and goes 3rd fastest. That's more like it from the AlphaTauri man. What can his teammate Yuki Tsunoda do? It's an okay first sector from Yuki Tsunoda, but the second sector is where the AlphaTauri really should come to life. A little bit more windy, some high-speed corners, and it sort of suits this sort of Red Bull AlphaTauri style of car a little bit more. Yuki Tsunoda 0.6 off of Lewis Hamilton's time as he finishes the second sector. Coming towards this final sector then, what can he show? Little bit of traffic in front of him. Lando Norris or Daniel Ricciardo just jumps out of the way, and then a few other cars to just get through if you're Yuki Tsunoda, but flies around towards the final corner and down the final pit straight. Yuki Tsunoda goes 5th fastest. Hello, Yuki. Wow. That is great from Yuki Tsunoda. Goes 5th fastest in the AlphaTauri. The Ferraris behind him. Just Lando Norris from that sort of midfield pack in front of him, and his teammate Pierre Gasly there as well. Fernando Alonso now, though, looking very quick through the first and second sectors, just 0.4 off of Hamilton's time as he finishes the second sector. Hello, Mia. How you doing? You right? Fernando Alonso, though, now found himself some pace into the final sector, comes around the final corner, opens the DRS, and it's quite a long run down to the line, to be fair. Gets a 1:22.5 and goes 3rd fastest. What can his teammate Ocon do? Only 8th. Valtteri Bottas now is setting the fastest first sector time. Better than his teammate Hamilton. And let's see what Bottas can do on this flying lap. 7.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. It is only Q1 though, so we're looking at this bottom 5 and who's going to drop out. Currently it's both Haas's, both Alfa Romeos and Latifi. George Russell, the man on the button, in 15th place. Valtteri Bottas goes fastest in the first sector, not so good in the second sector, but now coming around the final corner, the DRS obviously open towards the line. What can he do? And goes fastest by 3 thousandths of a second. That is absolutely nothing. The blink of an eye between Bottas and Hamilton, but he does go fastest. Kimi Räikkönen improves, but not enough. Actually, equals Latifi's time exactly down to the 1,000th, but both of them are still out at this point. Yuki Tsunoda into the pits then, as lots of drivers coming out for their second stint, looking at Lewis Hamilton in his brand new helmet for this weekend, obviously with the LGBT flag across the top along the sides as well. Thoughts on the track so far? It looks good. It looks quite entertaining. I don't know how good it will be for overtaking, but in terms of the high speed corners and in terms of the stress that the drivers are probably going under, like Max Verstappen was pretty much flat throughout the entire second sector, give or take. Like, it was pretty insane from Max Verstappen. It looks like it's going to be very heavy on the drivers. Obviously, going to be also very hot. But it looks like it's going to be a real challenge for them, especially to drive at their top level for the entire Grand Prix. My worry is tomorrow. Doesn't look like there's many places you can really overtake apart from down into turn 1. And we know that, it's good to have a couple of places to overtake, really, on every track. Perez goes second fastest of the Red Bulls, fourth fastest overall. But we've got Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, Alonso as our top 5. Then we got Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris, Yuki Tsunoda, and Ocon down into 10. And Vettel, Ricciardo, Leclerc, Stroll, and Russell will be the guys that are looking over their shoulders at Latifi, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher, and Mazepin. Valtteri Bottas might be under pressure here, though, and is, as Verstappen goes fastest and is the first person to go into the 121s. Will we see a 120 here? I think it'd be very, very impressive if we did. 121s seems like where we are going to be. But my goodness me. Bottas, 0.02 of a second slower than Verstappen, and then just another 0.003 of a second to get to Lewis Hamilton in third. So it's pretty close at the top between those drivers, I think it is fair to say. Lewis Hamilton actually a few hundredths of a second quicker in the first sector. As I was saying, the second sector feels more Red Bull. Feels like a better Red Bull kind of track, the second sector. Max will get pole, says Liam. Never know. We're going to have to wait and see. I think it's going to be close between those at the top. One little mistake, as we're seeing, 0.02 of a second is going to be the difference. So Charles Leclerc makes a little bit of a mistake. Ooh! Towards the end of the lap. And his lap time was deleted because of track limits as well. So stepped out of the track limits. And so did Lando Norris, actually, as well. So Lando Norris's track time has been deleted also for just stepping slightly off of the track. Seems like that final corner is causing a little bit of problems for those guys. George Russell, though, currently in 16th place as Latifi popped himself up into 13th. Missed that. But George Russell now coming around the final couple of corners. What can he do in this Williams car? Obviously moving to Mercedes next year. Wants to show Mercedes that they made the right decision. And wants to put in a good lap time for his team. Goes 10th fastest as well. Wow. George Russell up into the top 10 with that. Drops the likes of Vettel, Ricciardo, Latifi, and Leclerc. Now the man in the sort of worst position to be in, really. 15th. You're on the button. You've got a lot of pressure on you to improve because you assume that everybody behind you is coming for you. Here we go then. 2 minutes left to go, or just over, and everybody is going to be coming back out again. Max Verstappen, though, seems fairly happy with his time, and I think we'll settle in until Q2. But everybody else seems to be coming back out again for another run at it. Obviously, time there to find and things to improve. as these guys get towards the point where they're going to not be able to set another time. Obviously, you have to get across the line before the timer strikes 0. As long as you get across the line before the checkered flag, you can still finish your lap. But with 1 minute and 20 seconds left to go, you're not going to be able to do another lap in that time. So this is everybody's last opportunity to go, as the Alfa Romeos are now coming down the pit straight and starting their final lap. A little bit of traffic sort of through turn 14, 15, and 16. Everybody trying to find a little bit of a gap for themselves to go for it. As Charles Leclerc actually jumps the queue just slightly. And then one of the McLarens just jumps ahead again still. So Charles Leclerc now starting his time. Lewis Hamilton saying there's a lot of traffic going down. 40 seconds left to go. Who's going to get across the line and who might miss out because of this traffic? Lots of traffic still round the final corner, and the time is ticking. The Mercedes are now coming around turn 16, and then there's the Alpha Tauris as well. The Alpines look a little bit like they're not going to make it to me. They're at sort of the back of the pack there from what I can see. But here we go then. We're more concerned about these drivers. Charles Leclerc, not a vintage first sector from him. He's under a lot of pressure in 15th place. You've got Stroll, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi all behind him that will want to improve. Here we go then. Oh, Kimi Raikkonen pops himself up into 14th. So Charles Leclerc, if he can't improve, is out. Giovinazzi pops himself into 16th place. That won't be good enough to get himself through to the next session. Pierre Gasly improves and goes 5th. But everybody's got eyes on Charles Leclerc. Sebastian Vettel goes 6th fastest in that Aston Martin. It's Nicholas Latifi that will be hoping that Leclerc can't improve. As he comes around the final corner, he's following Daniel Ricciardo down to the line. Mick Schumacher improves. But Charles Leclerc comes across the line and goes 10th fastest. So will be safe there, you'd imagine. George Russell goes 12th fastest and will be getting into Q2, you'd imagine, with a time like that. Although Stroll goes up into 8th. That puts Ocon on the bubble. Lewis Hamilton goes fastest of everybody. A 10th of a second in front of Verstappen. And we're on board with Ocon now. Let's see if Ocon can improve his time. Yuki Tsunoda does improve his time, goes 6th fastest. And Ocon goes 10th fastest. So he will do it. Mazepin, final one to cross the line, does improve, but it's only a 1:25.8. So Nikita Mazepin, 3.9 seconds off of Lewis Hamilton. Ouch. If you're a Nikita Mazepin fan, I apologize. That is some grim reading for you today. So, who is out then? Shall we slot some drivers into our little diagram that we have? So, race board. I haven't put the race board on my little... I haven't put the race board on... There we go. Race board. Where are we? Mazepin, Mick Schumacher. Oh, Kimi Raikkonen's in the weighbridge. Giovinazzi, Latifi, and Kimi Raikkonen. 3 races left in Formula 1 for Kimi Raikkonen, and not quite able to get out of Q1 there. Will slot himself into 16th place for the start of the race tomorrow. But George Russell Q3, that's a big shout. I like it. In your opinion, who is the first driver in Ferrari at this point in the season? Oof. I mean, Charles Leclerc, I guess, but just because he's got the experience and more points. But both drivers are wonderful. I've said continually throughout this season that I think Ferrari have the best lineup. I think the best 2 drivers, or the best pairing of drivers, are at Ferrari. I think they've just got it spot on at Ferrari at this point in time. and they do incredible things every single weekend, those two. Charles Leclerc always looks like he's going to pick up points. So does Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc always looks like he's going to be, sort of the next best driver behind the top four, and he's just doing it every single week at this point, and it's showing. Like, if we go to the constructors, Ferrari are pretty much there, to be honest with you, and it pains me as a McLaren fan to say I don't think McLaren have any real chance of catching Ferrari at this point. I think Ferrari have done it. I think Ferrari will just sail away with third place in the Constructors' Championship, and then if you look at the Drivers' Championship, there's just 3 points in it, which is nothing at this point in the season. Like, there's a lot of points still on offer. And Leclerc only needs 3 points more than Norris over these last 3 races. And considering how good the Ferraris look since those upgrades, and the fact that, the McLaren car hasn't really been upgraded in any way whatsoever in the last few races, it looks like it's going to go Ferrari's way. And I really hope that Lando Norris can hold on to 5th place, but I'm not sure it will. Yeah, that's what I mean. Sainz has 3 podiums. Norris has 4 podiums. Charles Leclerc only has 1 podium. He's just so consistent. He's always there and thereabouts. Like, yes, he probably hasn't had the, massive highs of some of the drivers around him. Like Daniel Ricciardo's won a race this season. But Charles Leclerc's just always been around about good enough. Around about top 5, top 6 all the time. James, you think Alonso have the pace to beat both AlphaTauris this weekend? No way, mate. No way. Pierre Gasly is going to be well ahead of Fernando Alonso in that AlphaTauri. He might beat Yuki Tsunoda. I'm a big advocate. I feel like you're asking the wrong person, considering I'm wearing an AlphaTauri hat. Literally am wearing an AlphaTauri hat. No, like, the Alpines look good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they will be better than the rest of the guys out there. Ooh, Sebastian Vettel. Ooh, and Lando Norris getting blocked by Fernando Alonso there. That looked very risky. Very risky indeed. Norris will probably be 7th. No. Carlos Sainz went. No. I hope not. It's okay. We have our opinions. Exactly. We're allowed to disagree. We'll agree to disagree with one another, won't we? We're all allowed to have our own opinions on the sport of Formula One. That is kind of why sport is so entertaining, right? Because everybody has slightly different versions and sees it from slightly different perspectives. If everybody agreed, sport would be boring. Like, imagine if everybody supported the same football team, like, the other ones just wouldn't exist, and then it would be pointless. Same with Formula One. If everybody supported the same Formula One driver, we'd only need one driver on the grid, and it would just be them driving round and round by themselves, and that would not be what we want out of a Formula One race. We want the whole spectacle. We want to see everything and anything happen in 2021, and it has delivered anything and everything pretty much every single race. So what is our shock going to be in this Q2 session? Obviously, George Russell just about sneaked through in the Williams in 15th place, so maybe we're on for another George Russell Q3. I think it's very unlikely. The Williams just hasn't quite looked itself. It looked really, really quick after the summer break, but it's kind of settled back towards its average position, hasn't it, over the last few? Let's see what happens then. How far away are we? A couple of minutes now, and we will see some Q2 drivers. Max Verstappen and the Red Bull garage just getting ready, getting settled as the lights do go green. And we'll see some drivers heading down soon, I'm sure. I will just get the timer ready to go again. Leclerc might be out. No, he improved enough. He improved enough, did Charles Leclerc. I don't think he'll end up being out. Although George Russell is the first driver to take to the track in this session and will be the first man to set some lap times for us. Where are we? Let's set this timer up whilst we're thinking about it. There we go. Daniel Ricciardo also joining George Russell on track, and his teammate Lando Norris follows him out just after. Then Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. So the Ferraris and the McLarens, that battle for third in the Constructors, both coming onto the track together for this Q2 session. And here we go then. It's the big boys. Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez all making their way down as well. And the AlphaTauris in and amongst it too. It's Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly following their Red Bull brethren. Max Verstappen, though, giving his teammate a little bit of space before he follows on. And Pierre Gasly is going to follow behind Verstappen. Pierre Gasly going onto the soft compound tyre. Very interesting. Remember, whatever tyre you set your fastest lap in Q2 on is the tyre you start the race on if you're in the top 10. So Max Verstappen going for the medium compound tyre, hoping to start the race on the mediums tomorrow. And I feel like that is going to be, the general rule of thumb. Both Mercedes also on the medium compound tyre. Sergio Perez on the medium compound tyre behind them. But Lewis Hamilton is leading that pack of 4. Yuki Tsunoda actually between the 2 Red Bulls. And it's George Russell who's now setting the first fastest lap in Q2. Both of the McLarens coming round turn 16. And the Ferraris in 15 and 14 as well, just behind. I say McLaren in threat for this session. Yeah, I think you might be right. It's going to be close. It's going to be close between the McLarens, Aston Martins, Alpines, and George Russell in the mix as well. And we know how good George Russell can be when he gets one lap together. Let's see what he can do. Where is George Russell? Just coming around turn 10. So Pierre Gasly, the man in front of him, and he might just catch him before the end of the lap. But we'll have to wait and see. Lewis Hamilton just starts his first flying lap of the Q2 session. Obviously was fastest in Q1. And his teammate Valtteri Bottas just behind him coming through turn 1. Yuki Tsunoda crosses the line for AlphaTauri. Again on his first lap of the session. The 2 Red Bulls, Perez and Verstappen just behind. And George Russell actually does have to just slot in front of Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly just has to watch out of the way of the Williams as he comes around, but George Russell goes fastest. Obviously, he's the only one to have finished a lap, but a fairly decent lap from George Russell there, 122.9. So we'll have to wait and see whether that is good enough. Obviously, the 121s was where we were looking for the fastest cars last time, but they were on the softer compound tyre. So we'll have to wait and see what these guys can do on the mediums. Again, the tyre degradation, the temperatures will be slightly different on the medium compound tyre, the level of grip that these guys get. But it is better off for them starting on the medium tomorrow. Carlos Sainz goes fastest by 0.4 of a second to his ex-teammate Lando Norris. But Lewis Hamilton is now finishing his lap, comes around the final corner, opens the DRS down towards the line, and Lewis Hamilton goes fastest, a 121.6 from him. His title rival, Max Verstappen, just coming through the final sector as his teammate Valtteri Bottas comes across the line and goes second fastest, a 121.9. Yuki Tsunoda goes third fastest, beats out both of the Ferraris and the McLarens as well. Sergio Perez is only good enough for 6th, but Verstappen goes second, a 121.9, 0.3 behind his title rival in Lewis Hamilton. Pierre Gasly, the final man to cross the line on the softer compound tyre, let's be reasonable, but still goes second fastest. Just 0.2 of a second off of Lewis Hamilton. So George Russell, Gasly and Tsunoda were on the softer compound tyre there. Maybe thinking about a different strategy for tomorrow, starting on the soft compound tyre instead of the mediums. I think it's going to be a hard compound tyre kind of race tomorrow, though. So, going to be interesting to see what kind of strategy they decide to go for if they are going to qualify on this softer compound. Here we go then. Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin is now coming around the track. Still no time set for Vettel, Ocon, Alonso and Stroll. And Leclerc currently the only man out of the session who has a lap time, a tenth and a half behind Daniel Ricciardo in 11th place. Maybe Charles Leclerc is under a bit more pressure than I said before. Obviously, we have got the 5 drivers from the previous session already out in Raikkonen, Latifi, Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher and Mazepin, and 5 more drivers will be joining them in 8.5 minutes time. Sebastian Vettel goes fairly well round the first sector. Obviously, he only needs to be in the top 10. That is the goal for these drivers in this session. Make sure you're faster than the rest. Or the other 5 drivers that are out there. Sebastian Vettel now coming around to the final sector. 2 more corners to go for him in the Aston Martin. A right-hander at the end comes out towards the finish line. Will get across the DRS line. The DRS pops open. And here we go then. Sebastian Vettel across the line goes 7th fastest and drops Daniel Ricciardo into the bottom 5. George Russell now the man on the limit and gets dropped down by Ocon. Ocon is now in 6th place. And Lance Stroll's going to come across the line in 9th fastest. So Sergio Perez now the man to get dropped down into the bottom 5. And Alonso actually went fastest in the first sector and is going to come across the line in 6th place, dropping Lando Norris, of all people, down into the bottom 5. So Lando Norris, Sergio Perez, George Russell, Ricciardo and Leclerc, the slowest of the 15 drivers that are left in it. Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll on the softer compound tyre. Charles Leclerc not happy. And not really sure how he's going to make up this time. A little bit confused in the Ferrari. The number 16 on the front of Charles Leclerc's car. He did go around on the medium compound tyre, but it's a little bit of a mix, actually. Lots of people have gone for the softer compound. So we've got Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda, Alonso, Ocon, Vettel, Stroll, and Russell all on the softer compound tyre. Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Sainz, Norris, Perez, Ricciardo, and Leclerc on the medium. Will we see some of those guys on the medium swap to the softs to try and gain that extra little bit? Because at the moment in time, 4 of the 5 drivers in the drop zone are on the medium compound tyre. Lando Norris needs to improve. Sergio Perez is going to be gutted that he's not in and amongst the Red Bull Mercedes battle. George Russell obviously on the soft compound tyre in the Williams. Not really expecting him to get through into Q3. It would be a big surprise for him to do so. Daniel Ricciardo, again on the medium compound tyre, not really finding the pace in that McLaren. His teammate Lando Norris joining him in that bottom 5. And Charles Leclerc, as we just heard on the radio, really unsure where he can make up this pace. And unsure what he can really do to improve. And that's not what you want to hear when you're in 15th place in Q2. So lots to still go in 5 minutes time. We'll find out who the 5 drivers are that drop out. But George Russell having another go at it is on the track all on his own, basically. Let's see what he can do in the Williams car. Charlie with Perez could be in trouble here. I think you're right. It's looking very troublesome for all of those guys on the medium compound tyre. I'm really not enjoying the fact that McLaren are both down there at this moment in time as George Russell finishes the first sector and is only a 10th behind Lance Stroll's time. Lance Stroll, obviously, the sort of caliber of driver that he needs to beat to get into the top 10 at this point. Lance Stroll, currently the man on the drop. Sebastian Vettel just in front of him in 9th place. Carlos Sainz, the other Ferrari, having a little bit of a better time in 8th place compared to his teammate Charles Leclerc. Ocon and Alonso came home 6th and 7th. Yuki Tsunoda with a great drive into 5th. Valtteri Bottas 4th. Verstappen 3rd. Gasly 2nd. And of course, Lewis Hamilton, the man in 1st place. As we go into the final 4 minutes of this session, George Russell then coming around the final corner. What can he do in this Williams car? It wasn't a great second sector from him, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to improve on Lance Stroll's time. He is not. Just about improves on his time, but nowhere near Lance Stroll, I'm afraid, for the Williams man. Still needs to improve. He's obviously got 3 minutes left to go. Needs to find 0.2 of a second if he can in that Williams car. And not looking great for George Russell. That car just looks a little bit unstable at times, to be honest. But I'm sure he will be thinking to himself there's areas to improve. Gasly now out as well. Lewis Hamilton with that brand new helmet also coming out onto the track right now with 3 minutes left to go in this session. Sebastian Vettel out. Max Verstappen stood in. Okay. Alpine and AlphaTauri look like they have a chance to battle against Ferrari this weekend. I really hope so. That'd be very interesting to see, those sort of midfieldy pack, especially if they can get up towards a podium. I know that that's like very out of their reach, really, but possibly, given a little bit of a battle to Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. I mean, Charles Leclerc might be battling with the Hasses and Williamses by the looks of things, because he's going to be in 15th place if he doesn't improve on his time. Let's see then. Are we going to have a similar sort of amount of traffic in this lap? Carlos Sainz is going to be the man to come round the final corner. He's going to be followed up by his teammate very shortly. And a McLaren in the mix there as well, just coming through turn 16 also. But we have got just over a minute or so left to go. And just trying to work out who's already on fast laps and who's going to have to shuffle out of the way. So Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris are starting their fast lap, and Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen are probably going to have to let them by at some point. Are they going to be able to get across the line in time to set another lap time? You'd assume that Hamilton, Gasly, Verstappen, Bottas are fairly safe where they are, but you never know when it comes to these Formula One sessions. Anything could happen at any moment, really. But Alpine and AlphaTauri are the ones to watch at this point in time. McLaren, of course, as well. Sergio Perez, we're going to have an eye on too, as he is going to have to improve on his time. Carlos Sainz is going to be the man coming around then on the medium compound tyres, still with the Ferrari, so didn't opt to go for the softs. Lando Norris, on the other hand, did opt to go for the soft compound tyre, and so did Charles Leclerc. And let's see what they can do. Charles Leclerc still not looking great on the soft compound tyre. Needs to improve if he can. Carlos Sainz doesn't improve his time. And Lando Norris is going to come across the line. Does improve his time. Goes 8th fastest and pushes Sainz down to 9th. This is not looking good for Ferrari. Can Leclerc do something? Leclerc only goes 11th fastest. Oh no, it is not looking good for Ferrari at all right now. Sebastian Vettel. No, that's Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, 11th fastest. Doesn't improve that much either. Is still in the drop zone. Sebastian Vettel's the man on the button. Can Daniel Ricciardo improve in any way? No, only goes 13th fastest. So Sergio Perez now in a lot of trouble and with a lot of pressure on him. Ocon now coming around the final corner. DRS open towards the line. Can Ocon improve on 7th? He can. He goes 5th. Faster than Yuki Tsunoda. Sebastian Vettel needs to improve. Does. And puts Carlos Sainz at risk in 10th place. Fernando Alonso goes 3rd fastest. Faster than Verstappen and Bottas. Does Alonso. Sergio Perez then is the man that we've really got to have our eyes on. DRS open, going down towards the line. Only 11th. Only 11th fastest for Sergio Perez. And he is going to be out. He put the softs on as well. And he's going to be out of the session. And that is not what Red Bull need in this battle in the Constructors' Championship. Is a Sergio Perez, the man who has the most experience driving around here. I feel like I shouldn't say that, like it was literally over 10 years ago. But he has the most experience of all the drivers in this session on this track, and he just can't get through. Charles Leclerc also out. Daniel Ricciardo also out. And this track is going to show us just something very special indeed. The Renault power of Alonso, as you're saying, Bravo, indeed coming to fruition. Carlos Sainz only just got through in 10th place as well. So did Lando Norris in 9th. So it's looking like the Alpines and AlphaTauris are the ones to watch this weekend. Although they are going to be starting on the soft compound tyre. Ooh, and Carlos Sainz actually did go quite wide and bumped all over. There might be a little bit of damage there to the bottom of the car, you'd imagine. But that's the end of Q2. It's Sergio Perez, Stroll, Leclerc, Ricciardo and Russell that join Raikkonen, Latifi, Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher and Mazepin as well in the bottom 10. Wow, so all eyes on... This is the right day to wear this hat. It was the right day. I'm giving it like birthday vibes. I know that my birthday's tomorrow, but like they know, right? They know that it's tomorrow, and therefore I'm just sending out the signal. Ferrari's engine don't suit this track. Yeah, it does look like that, doesn't it? The Ferrari's not looking quick at all. Although Carlos Sainz has made it for into 10, and you got to remember Daniel Ricciardo's on the Mercedes power, so is Stroll. And Perez is on Honda power. And Verstappen and Gasly and Tsunoda don't seem to be having any troubles whatsoever. So, not sure it's the just the engine manufacturer that is sort of going against them. I think just pure pace. And it's showing you, like, these guys haven't driven here before. They don't have any experience of the track. And maybe that is being the leveler, the great leveler in Formula One, is that we just need to go to a different track every single session so that the drivers can't learn it. And then we see who's best at adapting to a new scenario. And it looks like Sergio Perez, Stroll, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Russell, Raikkonen, Latifi, Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher and Mazepin were the guys that couldn't quite adapt enough to the new session and the new track that we are at this time this year. Cars that are hard on their boots, looks like. Yeah, it does look. It's going to be tricky actually, because I think, you know, going for the soft compound tire. Yes, you've got yourself into Q3, but it's going to be very tough on those tires tomorrow, and you've already put a couple of laps in them, you know, to qualify on those soft compound tires. I think they're going to have to change them. Are we looking at maybe a two-stopper? We're looking at a two-stop strategy from some of the guys on the soft compound tire. Quite possibly, you know. It wouldn't surprise me if we see some two-stops tomorrow. Maybe a soft onto medium, or like a soft onto hard, possibly. Could also work tomorrow as well. But they've gone for the soft compound tyre. They've qualified those on Q2. And they will be the tyre that they start the race on. So, Charles Leclerc on the radio. Just saying he has no idea what is going on. No idea. At least Norris got through. Yeah, you're right. At least Norris got through. Oof. Sergio Perez saying that the team went in the worst possible window. So not happy with his track position compared to the rest of the drivers. And Sergio Perez not a happy bunny at all. Going to be starting from 11th place tomorrow. How many laps? Oh, I don't know. It's going to be like 60-ish, isn't it? A 120. Because it was 70 for 110 last weekend. So it's probably 60-ish laps for a 120. And wow, Sergio Perez just not looking happy in that car at all, actually. They're just showing a little bit of a replay of his lap. And there's lots of sort of adjustments. You know that when drivers are making lots of little adjustments throughout a corner, it's not really going the way they wanted it to. You know, the smoother they look, the faster they usually are. And you can just see his hands sort of twitching left and right quite often. As opposed to, I imagine if, you know, we looked at an onboard of Verstappen just to compare, Verstappen's movements through the corners are a lot more smooth and sort of keeping that time, keeping that momentum of the car going. Alonso third row start might be possible. Alonso's in the top 10 and looked really, really quick in that session. Was quicker than Verstappen, quicker than Bottas. So, oh, it is 57 laps. Thank you, guys. 57 laps for tomorrow. The F1 website got to say the number of laps. Oh. As Paul di Resta. Paul di Resta, who I just remember as not being good enough at Force India, obviously now works at Sky, is giving us a little bit of insight into the Red Bull situation. And we're now going to talk to the McLaren pit wall with Andreas Seidel. And Daniel Ricciardo obviously out of this session, so he's not going to be the happiest bunny in the world. But at least Lando Norris is through to the next session, and maybe we can see a little bit of an improvement from him. Obviously, Lando Norris did have to go onto the soft compound tyre to get himself through, so we'll be starting on some used softs tomorrow, will Lando Norris. So that'll be interesting, especially because he's going to have the guys behind, you know, your Daniel Ricciardo's, your Charles Leclerc's, your Sergio Perez's, sort of barreling down on him on very different strategies and on fresh tyres because they didn't get through into Q3. Alpine versus AlphaTauri game on. I feel like it is this Gasly versus Alonso, the battle that we've been waiting to see in a qualifying session. Paul di Resta did racing. Was it for 3 years? Wow. I didn't realise he was in for 3 years. I thought he was only in for like 2. But 3's a fairly good stint, to be fair, in Formula 1. Here we go then. Q3. Oh, timer. Timer. Here we go. 2 Mercedes are out, and Max Verstappen is going to follow suit. Hamilton's actually the first driver out on track of anybody, and it looks like everybody else is going to follow along now that we've got just 11 minutes left to go. So Gasly not out yet, Alonso not out yet, but the other 8 drivers all on there. And we're seeing the DRS of Sergio Perez's car being checked over by the FIA. Obviously, that was what the controversy was around last week with Lewis Hamilton, and now we've got Red Bull being checked for the same thing as well. Obviously checking that that gap is not any bigger than 85 millimeters. The sort of post box that we see of the DRS has to be less than, or a maximum of 85 millimeters. So double checking that. Lewis Hamilton, as I said, is going to be the first man to set a fast lap in this session. And Ocon is going to be just behind him. to set a time too. Valtteri Bottas has dropped behind the Alpine and the Aston Martin of Vettel. So let's see what he can do. Lewis Hamilton coming down the final straight, DRS open, and starts his lap. Let's see what the number 44 car can achieve. Will it be pole position or will it go to his title rival in Max Verstappen? This is where the real crunch time comes. Top 10, shootout, fastest car starts at the front, slowest car starts in 10th place. Let's see what they can do. Hamilton coming around turns 4 and 5. What's his first sector going to look like? Obviously, it's going to be purple for those of you watching, but that's because he's the only person to have set a time. Valtteri Bottas could get another pole position. He's had poles quite often recently. Obviously, had pole position last time out in Brazil as well. So let's see if Valtteri Bottas can improve on Lewis Hamilton's time. Valtteri Bottas goes fastest in the first sector. Wow. Okay. Valtteri Bottas currently faster of the two Mercedes car. What can he do in the second sector? Hamilton finishes up his second sector and starts the third. And Valtteri Bottas not quite as quick, although Verstappen now takes the fastest first sector time. So Bottas drops that purple from him. Hamilton does a 121.2 as Bottas is now coming around the final sector. Max Verstappen is already 0.2 up on that time though, and is going to come around towards the second sector. What's Valtteri Bottas going to be able to achieve? Only goes second by 0.2, so 121.4. But all eyes are now on Max Verstappen as he comes around towards this third and final sector. Let's see what he can do as he comes towards the left-hander. The final right-hander towards the sprint, towards the line, comes around, just about keeps it on track, opens up that DRS, and it's a pretty long run to the line for Max Verstappen, and goes second, fastest, 0.2. Fastest first sector from Max Verstappen, but only a 10.5 in it. Gasly goes fourth fastest. Carlos Sainz currently fifth. Lando Norris in sixth. Yuki Tsunoda seventh. Ocon eighth. Vettel ninth. And Alonso in 10th place with no time as of yet. So where will Alonso slot himself in this qualifying session? Obviously a good 7 minutes left to go. So we're going to have another couple of laps from these drivers. They're going to come back into the pits, probably change up for some fresh, soft tyres, and go again. Max Verstappen, just that tiny, a 10.5 off Hamilton, but they are the margins of error that we have in Formula One. They are the tiny little margins that change you from being first on the grid to even all the way down to third and fourth, or only, half a second off of Lewis Hamilton. So he's very, very close indeed with those guys up at the top. And, Formula One is one of those races where it is always going to be close between them. Hello, Jocker, mate. You all right? How are you doing? It is very, very pretty. As we see a little helicopter shot of the track. It's very warm still in Qatar, 25 degrees. And obviously under the lights, these Formula One drivers are going to be very warm indeed. But they're used to being, inches from the combustion engine behind them. And they're going to be used to getting as much out of these cars as they possibly can. Gasly P4, Alonso P5. I know it's getting very close indeed. 5 minutes left of this session though. And still everything up for grabs, really. Here we go. Lando Norris, only 7th fastest. Can we improve on that? Pierre Gasly in 4th. Hoping for more from them. in the McLaren team, but obviously Daniel Ricciardo already out. Carlos Sainz we're looking at as well. His teammate already out. Vettel in 10th place. His teammate already out as well. So quite a few lone drivers out on track at this moment in time. And probably the biggest shock lone driver out on the track at this moment in time is Verstappen. Not quite good enough, from Sergio Perez, and only gets himself into 11th place. Verstappen will have to battle the Mercedes by himself one more time this season. Going for a Mercedes lockout, says Jeff. I like it. This weekend is really Alpine versus AlphaTauri. Definitely. Outside of the, especially in the constructors, right? But I mean, Mercedes, you've got possibly McLaren being able to make up points on Ferrari. Not looking too hopeful for that, to be honest with you, with Lando Norris being behind Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc and Daniel Ricciardo both not being able to even get into the top 10. But you never know. You never know with Formula One. Anything could change on a dime, especially with the run down to turn 1 tomorrow. Lewis Hamilton is now out on track, followed closely by Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda too in the AlphaTauris. We've got one of the Alpines coming out. Don't know whether that's Alonso or Ocon. Closely followed by Lando Norris and Sebastian Vettel as well. So we are now coming out with 3 minutes left of the session to go. The cars are lining themselves up and being prepared. Lewis Hamilton wants to be the first across the line and will obviously not get any sort of help down towards turn 1 either. Max Verstappen also now coming out of the pits behind Carlos Sainz in the lone Ferrari car. Lewis Hamilton now at turn 10, his title rival just going through turn 1. 2 minutes and 15 or so seconds left to go. How on earth is there's always fans from all over the shop in all of these races. It's Dutch fans in Qatar, of course. Here we go then. Hamilton coming around the final corner now and is going to start off proceedings for the final rundown in Q3. Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas are current top 3. Will that be the same by the end of this session? Hamilton across the line then does indeed start his first lap and goes round turn 1, carrying all that speed through the corner as well. Gets to about 100 meters from the second corner. Goes very nicely through there. Turn 3 has to do turn 4. It's a 90-degree right-hander, followed very closely by another 90-degree right-hander. Wonderful from Lewis Hamilton. Gets towards turn 6 and the end of the first sector. Goes purple. It is the fastest first sector from Lewis Hamilton. Let's see what the guys behind him can do. The AlphaTauris following him very closely indeed. But the second sector, the sector that I said would suit the Red Bulls a little bit better. Maybe I was just absolutely talking nonsense because Lewis Hamilton looks comfortable in this Mercedes car. And this was what I was talking about with Sergio Perez. Lots of little movements of the wheel. Watch Hamilton's wheel. So incredibly smooth around these corners. Goes purple in the second sector. Does Lewis Hamilton. Is now coming round the final couple of corners. A right-hander towards the sprint then. Finally down towards the line. Crosses the DRS zone. That DRS pops open. It's going to be wonderful from Lewis Hamilton. Down towards it. It's a 120.8. A 120.8. That is astounding from Lewis Hamilton. And that is going to be very, very tough to beat. Yuki Tsunoda only goes for a 121.8. And there's a yellow flag in Sector 3. Oh no, that's cleared. That's fine. Max Verstappen though, now coming around. Can he improve on his Mercedes counterpart's time? Let's see what he can do. It's not looking great from Max Verstappen in the first sector. Oh! Pierre Gasly has a front puncture. Oh, for God's sake, man. Oh, do they have to lift? That's it. Everybody else is going to have to slow down. Oh, well. Well, that ended. Well, Lewis Hamilton, what a pole position. Didn't really have to battle anyone else. I mean, it's an astounding time. A very, very good time indeed. But everybody had to sort of slow down a little bit. So we ended up with Hamilton in pole position. Hamilton in pole position. We ended up with Verstappen and Bottas just behind. He then came in. Gasly and Alonso. It was those guys indeed in fourth and fifth. So Gasly's going to start on the second row and Alonso on the third. Although Gasly is got a bit of a puncture and might have a little bit of damage to the right front sort of his car. Maybe something that those guys were going to have a little look into. What did happen? Did he go off onto the track? Bit of debris or something? Oh, it was a curb. Went across the curb, and was that a bit of his front wing that pinged off into the tyre? I'm not sure. Like, oh yeah, the front wing. Whoa! So he goes across the curb, and the front wing just snaps itself. The front wing takes so much damage that it collides with the tyre and also causes that to puncture. Wow, okay. So that's something to be looking at tomorrow if those guys are rattling through that final sector and they do bump over those curbs. It's apparently just a death wish waiting to happen because his front wing just gave in as quickly as it sort of came to pieces. Yeah, the curb broke his front wing and it punctured the tyre. So the sort of front right side of his front wing just completely disintegrated, to be honest with you. Snapped in front of the wheel and then just couldn't really do much about it. Max Verstappen comes home in second. Valtteri Bottas just behind in third. But they couldn't really do much about that. So Max Verstappen will be fairly happy with second place considering Lewis Hamilton set an astoundingly good time, and also then there was a sort of yellow flag / puncture / debris situation in front. So that curb is just going to be causing mayhem tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see. Alonso row 3, very good indeed from him. Lando Norris is going to join him on that third row. The fourth row, Carlos Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda, and Ocon and Vettel rounding out the top 10 and the possible points finishers. Charles Leclerc, Daniel Ricciardo will have something to say about that, I'm sure. They'll be just behind. Sergio Perez and Stroll as well will have a little idea that they can move forward in the next few, or in the race tomorrow. Could be Alonso's revenge on Gasly. maybe. I doubt it. I think that they'll race very hard, but very good. And to be fair, you've got to be looking at Alonso and being pretty happy with this, because Alonso has qualified on the third row. We know Alonso loves the start of a Grand Prix and generally does make places up at the start of a Grand Prix too. So I think it could be really interesting to see what happens tomorrow with these guys towards the front and whether or not they can maybe, mount a challenge towards the likes of Bottas, Verstappen and Hamilton in front of them. That would be very impressive if they can. But we will have to wait and see, unfortunately, if they can do it. But this is our starting grid for tomorrow. Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Gasly, Alonso, Norris, Sainz, Tsunoda, Ocon, Vettel, our top 10. Sergio Perez, disappointingly down there in 11th place. Stroll, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Russell rounded out our sort of Q2 15th places, and then Raikkonen will start in 16th just beside him. Latifi, Giovinazzi, Mick Schumacher and Mazepin. Yeah, so Gasly's front wing, what he did was as he was coming around, if I can pop the track board up, he was just coming around those final couple of corners. There's a curb just after turn, is it 15? Just after turn 15 there's a curb, and he took all of that curb very, very quickly. It put too much strain on the front wing by the looks of things, and that strain on the front wing just collapsed it completely on the right-hand side. And then as soon as you've got bits and shards of debris coming towards the car, especially at that kind of speed, the tyres are just a sort of sitting duck at that point. The tyres took the brunt of the front wing. The front wing pierced the tyre completely. Like, it wasn't like a small incident. Completely pierced the tyre of the AlphaTauri, and unfortunately, like Gasly, fortunately, sorry, is sort of able to keep it on the road and keep it going in a straight line, because it could have easily been a situation where he lost complete control of the car, to be honest with you. Very unlikely for Pierre to improve his time. It was, was he going to improve on 4th place? Probably not. Would we have liked to seen him try? Definitely. But yeah, it wasn't a great lap from him in general, but starts on P4 again. Pierre Gasly, just so good. So good. Just love him. Absolutely love him. I do just love him so, so much. And again, does it just in time to say goodbye. Yeah, Sally, unfortunately, it is the end of qualifying today. We're going to be back again for the race tomorrow. I'll just pop the race board up one more time for you and run through it. So Hamilton is going to start on pole position, and his title rival, Max Verstappen, just beside him in 2nd place. But it is going to be 2 Mercedes versus 1 Red Bull. I turned off because I got nervous. There was a lot going on, and it was looking like it was going to be very, very close down towards the line and down towards who was going to come out on top. But in the end, it seems that Lewis Hamilton has been able to come out on top. Lewis Hamilton is going to start from pole position, and Max Verstappen's going to start 2nd. Big shocks for the likes of Perez, Leclerc, and Ricciardo, though. I know that the Alpines and the Aston Martins have looked quick, but there's quick and then there's, just something different. And wasn't expecting them to be up in the top row of this grid. I'm going to be honest with you, wasn't expecting Gasly and Alonso to be 4th and 5th. I don't know whether that's something crazy to say, but, with the likes of Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc showing more and more pace, with, Sergio Perez having 3 podiums in a row and a 4th place finish last time out. Maybe, you're expecting one of those guys to be in and amongst it, but Alonso showing his quality again and doing massively well. If you look at Gasly and Alonso compared to Tsunoda and Ocon, they are just that upper step forward. They are that different gravy, as other YouTubers might say, before we get there. But yeah, we will be back for the race tomorrow. Where is it, the schedule? We're back at the same time tomorrow as well. 1:30 start again in Qatar. It is my birthday. We will be celebrating in more ways than one. And we'll be celebrating massively if Pierre Gasly can convert this 4th place finish, this 4th place start, into a podium finish. My God, my words are just gone out of my mouth. But I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. 1:30 again for the race in Qatar, the final one of this triple header. And of course, 2 races left to go. If you haven't entered the giveaway already, please do follow the link in the community tab to win yourself £100 worth of merch. It does end tomorrow. It's your last chance to get involved. Follow the link on the community tab. Sign up there so that you can get your hands on £100 worth of Formula One merch of your choosing to celebrate. And I will be picking a winner out of the hat tomorrow. But it has been vintage. It has been Formula One, and just what a lap from Lewis Hamilton. Like that, and Maori just literally says that as I say it. Yeah, what a lap from Lewis Hamilton. Absolutely wonderful stuff from him. It's going to be so close tomorrow, though, isn't it? We don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know about tyre degradation. We don't know about how these guys are going to be able to cope with the conditions over the course of the 57 laps. And of course, it's 2021. And anything could happen. We've got Hamilton and Verstappen going wheel to wheel down into turn 1. Let's see what is going to happen between those two. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. It massively helps out for me and for everybody involved. Thank you again, and I will see you next time.